Hey, what's up guys, we're back with another tutorial series. This one is on Xfer Records Serum, and as always we have our plugin in question, and as a learning tool we have our signal analyzer and our spectrum analyzer by rs-met.com as a learning tool, and it'll show us what's going on kind of under the hood and help us figure some stuff out. So we're going to start right away because it's been a while. And yeah, so we have our four main tabs here up at the top, which would be your oscillator section, would be sound generation, our FX section, our matrix modulation routing section, and then our global options, and our oversampling and tuning and all that fun stuff, as well as our unison setting. But we'll get into that. So we're going to start kind of quickly, just give you a rundown of the UI. You have your oscillator A and oscillator B. And then you have your sub. You turn them on and off. You have all your subs here. And then your noise generation / it's kind of a sampler as well. Then you have your filter. And then you enable routing into the filter, cutoff, resonance. We'll get into that. A whole bunch of filters here. We have our modulation section. And then our pitch bend mod wheel, our pitch bend range, portamento, kind of voicing, and our keyboard. Right. Our effects section, we have a bunch of effects. You can select and kind of deselect. You can drag and drop them. You move them around. And yeah, you just can do that. They operate in series. You have your modulation matrix. 4 to 5 times you won't be using this because you can intuitively drag and drop modulations to here and adjust the range, but then it'll automatically show up here, which is cool. But yeah, kind of different workflow, and yeah, it's pretty cool. And then your global section, which has your chaos settings, which add kind of an analog like randomness to certain things, which you can map to, you can have as a source, chaos 1 and 2, and changing things up. Then you have your unison settings, linear, your super, which is modeled in the JP8080, which I have behind me, your exponential and log or random, blah, 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 just kind of goes on. And you have up here, you have all your preset settings. You always start in init, you can save, and then you have your preset browser here with category, which is pretty cool. Then your menu, which is pretty cool because you can read the manual. You can copy, render, resample, all that fun stuff that's been added in sequential versions. Really cool because once you buy it, you have like a bunch of updates, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. So I always start on init, and yeah, we'll be back with more videos on Serum. Hope you stick around. Take care and have a... Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'll be going over the oscillator section in Serum. This is a basic rundown of what you're looking at. You have oscillator A and oscillator B, and we're going to be dealing with this window right here, just focusing on one oscillator. You'll notice that you have a window here which is showing which, that's basically an oscilloscope, and it's saying, okay, this is a saw wave, and we can verify that's a saw wave right here. This is the default. You start out with a saw, which is, it's, has a fundamental and has harmonics. That's what a saw is. You can cycle through and go through all of your wave tables. Now, there's a difference. We're just going to touch on this briefly, but say, this is a cycle right here, and the wave table would be, you click on it and it'll have multiple frames, 256 frames, which it cycles through. So there's frames and then like the entire wave table, which is this whole thing right here, right? So yeah, that's basically how it works. So we're going to be getting into that more in depth a little bit later. It's very robust. Anyway, that's how you go through them. It's not like, well, it is. So say if you wanted to have it like basic Moog. So this will kind of cycle through when your wavetable position. It'll cycle through a triangle to saw to a pulse, square, and then another pulse, right? And yeah, so let's kind of go back here. All right, so you have your octave, which will switch the pitch up or down. You have your semitone, so you can get like fifths going on. If you stack that with Oscillator B. Your fine tune, which will detune it slightly in cents. Right? And what I'm doing is I'm hitting control and clicking to reset the value. And this is coarse and there's no stepping. So you can get like lasers. Right? So you can modulate that. This is the edit button, so you can click on that and you can edit the wavetable. Or frame, we'll get into that a little bit later. You have a Unison, which will take what you have here and stack it, and then detune and blend are all kind of together. So we'll have blend at 0. So we'll stack them up. You'll see, and it's getting wider, and you can go up to 16 times Unison, which stacks it up 16 times. So we'll go 2 just for the sake of figuring it out. We'll blend, we'll detune. Right? So it takes the left and right, stacks it, and then pans it left and right. And then we'll do that. We'll have more of that. So see, we have, with this one, we have the center, and then we have 2 on each side, making it, wide. Or we can have 2 in the center. And it's just different kind of stacking. And then we can blend, so we can have just the center with a little bit of side. Or have them roughly equal. Right, so we can get like a saw, right? And that's 7 times Unison. So we'll go back down here. Phase is where the sound will kind of start playing. So you can really hear that when you have your Unison on. Right, so we'll turn randomness down. So randomness, you see how that closes. That closes the probability of it starting in that one area. So we'll set it to 0. And the phase will start here. And you can really hear it if we do that. So now they're stacked. So they're all starting at the same time. All 7. And if we kind of detune it, right, they're all kind of starting at the same time. Right? And if we, boost the randomness, each voice will start at a different time. At a random time. So that's good. And that's good if like you have another kind of oscillator running and you want these two to be kind of synced, right? So we have oscillator A and oscillator B set like so, right? And we can adjust the phase of oscillator B. These are both saws. And see, yeah, go up. And we can adjust the phase. And that's good for like a low end bass line, and you want it to be the same kind of, more of a consistent bass line and not so analog. So it'll like re-trigger. If we have random on, right, it all starts at different times in the bass, and like for a bass or whatever, it won't sound consistent. Anyway, that's a basic rundown of what phase and random does. Just does all that. Wavetable position. So say we have the default saw. Adjusting the wavetable position doesn't really do much. We have to go to, say, we can go to basic shapes and we can cycle through. So we have sine, saw, triangle, square, pulse, and then more of a pulse, or inverted triangle, square, right? So it's all right? And they snap, and you can click on this and you can see how it does that. There's no like crossfade between them. If we go to say a digital or we'll go spectral, Monster by Seamless. What's up? We have a very complex wavetable, which is 256 frames, all cycling through. So you can get like talking stuff, and that's what the wavetable position does. The warping, we're going to get into a little bit later, but it's the ability to bend. So we'll go basic shape to sine. This ability to bend and pinch the single cycle, which is a pretty good effect, and you can adjust the symmetry, right, and do all sorts of fun stuff. Pan, of course, panning it left and right. These are stereo. Well, they can be when they go out, filter stereo, but these are mono, but you can adjust the unison and do all sorts of stuff. Right? And then the level. And the level is automatically mapped to envelope 1. You got to remember that. It's just like massive. The amplitude is already mapped to envelope 1. And pretty much that is the basic rundown of the oscillator section. There's a lot you can get into. You can get into like actually, drawing stuff in and creating your own shapes, right? And doing all sorts of fun stuff and adding frames to build your wavetable, and then morphing in between, go spectral, and then and all that. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Yeah, that was difficult. Hope you learned some stuff. We'll be back with some more stuff. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be going over the filter in Serum. The filter is this section right here, and it is off by default, so we will filter enable, and we'll see this little pop-up right here. This is the kind of a spectrum overlay of what's going on. The cutoff adjusts the cutoff point, right? Resonance feedbacks the cutoff point. And pan kind of splits the filter left and right and has a different cutoff. Right, so you can get kind of like an interesting widening effect just with the filter. The drive will saturate whatever is in A or B, whatever you have routed, it'll drive it into the filter. So you get more of like a smudginess. Sorry for that saturation or clipping. And fat will boost the overall volume without clipping. So say if you have it like the level really low, right, you can do that. So there's that. The mix will kind of do it in series. So you'll have, so it's fully wet, so it's all filter, or you can have it 0, so the filter is bypassed. So we'll just do that. You can also click here for level, and that'll just have the overall level come down, which is pretty useful. And yeah, the actual filter layout changes as you move around. So routing is kind of important. So you'll notice that the A switch is toggled, so oscillator A is being routed into the filter. If we turn on oscillator B, right, to, something different, we'll boost that up. It's not being driven through the filter. We can select oscillator B, so it's now routed. So now oscillator B and oscillator A are being routed, and Yeah, we can route in the noise, assuming it's on, and the sub, and everything will be routed through the filter. We can just have, have a bypass and so on and so forth. Pretty straightforward in terms of its routing. We can also, let's turn that off. We can key track. So as you move up your keyboard, the filter will open, and I'll give you kind of a visible representation. So the filter opens as you move up the keyboard, so you don't lose, your higher frequencies. So the filter does that. Cool thing about the filter is it's per voice. So each filter, each oscillator, each key, I should say, is filtered independently. So if you're hitting a chord or what have you, what passes as a chord, each key will go through 3 filters, or like it'll go through 3 filters. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Missed the first part, which is your filter selection. So the MG is the Moog, right? And you can go up. You'll notice that there's 16, 12, 18, 24. These are cut off. It basically, it's how steep the cutoff filter is, the slope. So you notice that 24 is a lot steeper than 12. And that's just like, it's the difference between 1 pole and 4 pole. So we'll turn off key tracking. Right. And these are ladder type filters or Moog type filters. Then you have your basic state variable. These are all low pass. You have your high pass. Different filters here, and you have your band, this is useful for kind of like bass boosting. You can find a cool little spot there and then adjust the mix. So it's kind of like a peakish type thing, and you can modulate that or do whatever you want. In the band, we have peak, which is kind of like an EQ type thing. I'll just kind of boost it, and one particular area. It's kind of like, it's just regular peak filter. That's cool stuff like that. And then notch, which is like the opposite. And we'll do that. We'll go 24. So as you go up, the numbers mean basically steeper, right? And those are your basic filters. You have multi-filters, which are cool. So L would be low pass. H would be high pass, right? And we have band, B, and then P, peak. So these are kind of 2 filters in one. I'll give you a better example. We'll go low and high pass. So there's the low cutoff, and then the high cutoff, right? And then the resonance is kind of linked to both. Which is pretty cool. And you can do all sorts of fun, like vowel-y type of stuff. Right? And you can map those to a macro, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And these are the multis. Pretty fun. The flanges, which are, a bunch of peaks and valleys affected when you boost the resonance. Right? You can do all sorts of fun stuff. Comb positive, comb negative. Make something a little bit more hollow. And then you got flange, phase, and all sorts of options with high pass, low pass. Right, and you can get some really weird stuff going on there. MISC, just these don't fit into any one thing. Think of this as, oops, what am I doing? Yeah, this is kind of like an EQ style band. High pass, kind of adding a slope, positive and negative. So you can boost and cut, kind of a utility, kind of just shape something. Ring mod, which not so much a filter, but wait, not so much. Right. And different ones. Sample and hold, which is like kind of a redux. Adjust a bit. Oh yeah, so you'll see that it kind of goes down, so you can put under like 5,000. All the way to 0, which is pretty neat. Think of that as like the redux in Ableton. You got a comb filter. I'm really bad at explaining these. All the way down to, different. The reverb one is particularly special. The French, German, which is based on, I think it's based on the MS-2000. No, MS-20. The German one, which is a zero feedback, quote unquote, add bass, kind of, adds bass. And something that you might be interested in is the format, which is kind of a vowel filter, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that is the filter section. And yeah, hope you learned stuff. Take care, and we'll be back. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be going over the modulation section, the envelopes and LFOs, which is this section down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select a filter, and say we wanted this filter to start out open and then close like that by itself. Well, we would use an envelope, right? So it's triggered by the gate, and the gate is when you hit a key, essentially. So we have our envelope 2 here. We can drag, so I'll show you what happens. So we have like the filter there, so that's where it is. We'll drag the envelope, that little thing right there, and you notice that it changes, and that blue part is the modulation depth. So we'll hit a key and we'll see what happens. It goes from closed to open as soon as we hit it. That's because this envelope is fully open. So what we can do is we can drag this little thing right here, which is the sustain, drag it down, and you can see like it follows. And the time is, you can go up to like 1.21 seconds, right? And you'll notice that the filter closes. And what we're doing right now is we're effectively making a pluck. So congratulations, you have a modulated filter, which is cool. So let's just turn this off. So one thing you have to know, the reason why I used envelope 2 is because envelope 1 is always mapped to amplitude. So this is the maximum, this is like the loudness, the amplitude of your oscillators. So you'll notice right here, so like as soon as you hit a key, the gate fully open, and then it's closed. What we can do fun things like the attack time. So here's the time it takes for the sound as soon as you hit a key to reach full amplitude or full volume. You can see it kind of gliding up. Right? Or we can adjust the release, how long it takes for it to get down to 0. We can adjust the curve, which is pretty cool. This little not as bright little dot thing. Right? So we can do that. We can also kind of do the same thing. So when you hit it, so we can get kind of like a pizzy kind of thing. So we'll turn the filter back on. Right? We have, You'll notice that there's envelope 2 in the background, and envelope 1 is highlighted in blue. And this is the the main envelopes that you work with. Anyway, let's init, and I want to show you quickly the mod. This right here, you have your 4 kind of mappable knobs, which can control more than one thing at a time, which makes automation and stuff in Ableton really easy. I'll give you like kind of a use case for that. So we'll go low and high pass 16. We'll boost the resonance. Then we have our cutoff of our low pass, and then the frequency of our high pass. They're both kind of cut off, dual filter mode, low and high at 12 dB per octave. So we'll take this and we'll just drag this to cutoff here, right? And then we'll drag this one to frequency here. And if you're ever in like, if you want to know like what's mapped to what, when you have it selected, so say envelope 2, you'll notice that, what is this mapped to? You'll notice that that's not mapped to anything. So if we have envelope 2 mapped to the cutoff and envelope 1 is mapped to the cutoff, it kind of turns off here, right? So you can visually see, and even you can right click too, and you can remove or bypass modulation, which would be envelope 2, or you can remove all modulators if you don't want the filter cutoff to be modulated anymore. Anyway, so with this knob now, we can move cutoff and the frequency at the same time to get this kind of effect. You'll be able to see it better if I select it. There we go. Right? And then you can have that. And that's pretty cool. Anyway, let's end it again. That is the mod matrix. The mod soft knobs. I don't know what they're called. What are they called? Mod wheel source. Oh, this is for the mod wheel. Anyway, that's for, say, if you want your mod wheel, which is this guy right here, to be mapped to something. Hidden away, you have this ability here, and this mod wheel, which would be on your keyboard or what have you. It's mapped to that, right? And then these are different. Anyway, okay. Let's move on to our LFOs. LFOs, these are, think of these as very slow waveforms. So we'll do is we'll set it to, so say if we wanted, so this is a triangle, you can map this over to cutoff. That's our triangle. We can do all sorts of stuff like this. Let's start out with this little folder right here. This will change the shape. So if we wanted a sine, or if we wanted, say, a square, so it travels in this time domain, open, closed, which is pretty neat. We can go back to basics and do flat. So what this is basically nothing's going on. I want to show you what we can do. We can, for instance, double click anywhere and create a point, and then drag that around, drag the curvature, add more points, drag more of a curvature. This looks familiar. It should be, because this is somewhat like LFO tool. And this is a free running LFO. What we can do is we can trigger it so every time you hit the key, it starts up, but then it repeats. If you hit the envelope, it will just repeat once. So what you have there is you have 4 more envelopes if you want, which can create, really nice evolving sounds over time, right? And yeah, I sometimes prefer to use the LFO in the envelope mode. as opposed to the actual envelopes, just for flexibility. And you can make them like multi-stage, which is pretty cool. And all that. If you want to make them, here, I'll go back to flat. Do that. So this will be like a kind of a teepee triangle. One will go off. Right now, it's synced. The rate is at a quarter bar. We can set it to 1/64th, really fast. Or really slow. We can set it to a bar. So this can be a bar. And I'll show you a trick. You can say, get rid of that, it's flat. You can hold shift and make a step as per, where your grid setting is set to, your LFO grid. So it's eight divisions of one bar. And you can do that half bar, half bar. Right. Easy mapping. And that's sync to BPM. If you, for example, we'll go flat. If you wanted this to not be synced, you wanted to be free running in terms of time, you would hit BPM off, and it's cycle every 4.2 times a second. So like really slow, 0.01 times a second. So it's like a reverse multiplier or whatever. And you can trigger it if you want. And that's good for, say, your envelope. You want your envelope to be a little bit longer, like a longer sweep. Very high quality, no stepping. Pretty nice. So let's go back to BPM, and I'll kind of look at that. We have triplets and dotted. These are time divisions, so you can have triplets enabled, so that little T. Or dotted. There's that. I'll show you something else here. So we have your rate. We'll set BPM to that. So we have our saw wave. I will drop this onto coarse, which is the pitch. Right. So now it's kind of vibrating. Pretty nice. And what I want to do is I want to have it rise so it doesn't start vibrating right away. Well, it does, but it's very minuscule. From there, I can delay it. So, I can make like an epic, awesome lead that starts out kind of constant and then starts to vibrate. Right? So you got like, yeah, pretty neat, hey? That's good for your leads. I'll knit one more time. And I'll have a nice little filter here. I'll drag that. Right? What I can do is if I have something like really hard-edged, kind of stepping around, I can smooth it out. Which can, change the LFO shape and what the sound is doing. Pretty cool. You may notice that some things you can't really map. Say if you wanted to like map the rate to LFO1 or whatever. So let's do something kind of crazy here. I want to map the rate. I can set the mod source to LFO2. So LFO2, this right here, is modulating the rate or the speed. Which, adds more flexibility. And, I can do all sorts of fun stuff with that. And you can get some randomness and all sorts of fun stuff. And the cool thing about Serum and how this drag and drop modulation is everything that you do is automatically added to the matrix section. And it's really it's really cool. You don't have to go into this and just kind of like go through drop down menus and stuff like that. You literally just drag and drop on here and it automatically shows up here. And then you can refine it further by adjusting the curve and stuff like that, which we will most likely get into. And you can, bypass and select the amount through here and it'll actually show you with these cool blue light things. Kind of reminds me of Zelda. And you can even, for the envelope too, you can adjust the intensity of the filter cutoff. And add auxiliary sources. But that is a little bit outside the scope of whatever. Yeah, that is pretty much it. And that is just with the filter. And you have so many slots to add new things in. Anyway, I've talked enough. Hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'll be going over the sub and noise sections of Serum. The subsection is here and noise is here. So what the sub is it's an extra oscillator. Think of it as oscillator C. What it does is it outputs very basic shapes, sine, triangle, saw, square, and pulse. And what this does is it adds, just an oscillator below oscillator A, so you don't have to sacrifice oscillator B to have a bit of low end. And that's basically what it does. It sets the low end, so you have your sine, -1, and adds a bit of low end. That's pretty much what it does. Sounds pretty good with the filter. Make sure that the sub, this S here, is routed to the filter. You don't have to, but another thing worth pointing out is this sine wave is very clean. You just have the fundamental, right? This sine wave right here, the difference between this one and this one is a bit more analog. Right? You notice the harmonics here, and that sounds pretty good with some drive. Right? Yeah, just a little tip there. You have your direct out, which shoots whatever your sub oscillator is. 9 times out of 10, it's a sine. It shoots it directly out, and it bypasses the filter in effects. So essentially, you have a sine wave just coming out and being just it's in parallel. So it's not affected by any like effects or saturation or anything. It's not eating any headroom, but there you have that beefy fundamental on the bottom that you want if you want that, which is your bass and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. So what we'll do is we'll take envelope 2 and we'll kind of do that. Awesome. All right, so we're going to move down to noise. This is the noise section. This is another oscillator adding noise. We'll just have that just by itself. This is really cool. You can, it emulates, well, not emulates, it's basically a sampler. And we have AC hum. And another kind of, these are analog. You have like quite a bit. My favorite is this SID whine. So you can have that just running on top of things. Or like a square, right? So you can, I'll just quickly do this. You get that lo-fi kind of thing, and that's you know, with the wine. You have your kick attacks, which these kind of are kicks that it's looping over and over again. So you have to select the one shot right here, right? So you have like these percussion or like kick hits. So when you're doing like your kick sound design, you have this one shot at the beginning triggered by the gate, and you know, you can make some badass kicks. And you have other kinds of attacks. It's another kick kind of transient one, metal tick, and you can do all sorts of stuff with that. In harmonics, which are kind of spooky, you can pitch track these. Right, and get some Halloween kind of stuff going on. Paper bag. If you wanted to like just maintain the same pitch no matter what key you hit, you can adjust the pitch here. So with that and some reverb, it would sound pretty interesting. Control click to reset. And Sounds of Revolution, they have some like atmospheres and other kind of goodies in there. This shares, as far as I know, its amplitude with envelope 1, much like sub, I believe. Yes, it does. So what we have is our filter here. What we can do is we can set filter 1 to kind of match that. So like the noise is coming in conjunction with the filter. Have that all the way down. We can route the noise through the filter as well. Right, and you have, I don't know, something effectively bleep bloopy. You can add sounds and loops in here. It's in a folder in your Serum folder. You have all your kind of noise type things. These are waves, so you can add them. When you save a preset, it doesn't contain. So say if you save a preset with like a custom noise, and you move to another computer, it'll try to look for the preset. So make sure that you back up your entire folder. But that's like another maintenance thing. That is the sub and noise section. Before we go, you can use the sub as an FM source, or like for FM. So you can FM from the sub OSC. Right? So your sub can be an FM source. You can have the volume down. Right? And you can do that. Sub is very useful. And that's, you know, these are the things that when you use Serum, you kind of figure out, you're like, holy crap, there's like a lot you can do that's not, you know, readily apparent. Anyway, hope you learned stuff. Hope I'm doing well. It's been a while, but yeah, we'll be back with some more fun stuff. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over voicing, pitch, velocity, and note. It is this section right here. Now, velocity. Velocity is how hard you hit a key at any given time. I have push in front of me right now, and I'll just turn off this. So I'm going to hit it kind of lightly, and you'll notice that it's kind of right there. It's detecting that very lightly. As I start to mash, I can go all the way up to like maximum velocity. So what we can do with this, you know, kind of basically is map the velocity to amplitude. So as I'm, oh, I want to move up. So right now it's quiet, and now it's kind of loud. right? So what you can do with this is you can, we'll just bypass that, have that to that. I can have this map to a filter. So the filter opens up the harder I press, or the harder I pound a pad. So you can get more of like a natural, because like, you know, consistently I can't get the same kind of velocity. It's kind of weird, but like this gives you an opportunity to play something a bit more like evolving and more natural, and you can get a kind of a cool effect. So as I, you know, pound it harder, the filter is, or pound it harder, the filter is more open. As I hit the pad softer, the filter is more closed. Right? Pretty cool. And that's velocity. So I'll remove all modulators. Note. Note is where in relation to the key that you're playing. So as I move up, here, I'll just do that. Really low. Up, getting up there. Right? It's the note. So what happens automatically in synths is that we'll track, and that will, you'll move up in pitch. The oscillator will change its pitch relative to what note you're playing. That's pitch tracking, and that's done automatically. You can kind of have filter tracking, which is this guy right here. You can key track the filter. You can also do it manually, so you can get kind of a different feel. So as you move up the keyboard, the filter opens. I'll make it a bit more obvious. Right, and that happens automatically. And that's per voice. Yeah, and that's velocity and note. You can do a bunch of cool things with note. For instance, you know, you can map this to LFO rate. You can map this to the LFO rate, and you know, as you go up in your scale or whatever, the LFO gets faster or slower, or the velocity can change the rate. So you can get like really interesting kind of whatever sounds, and you can just go crazy. Anyway, yeah, those are velocity and note, and mighty useful and good to have. All right, so next up we have our voicing. So voicing is kind of interesting to explain. It's the amount of keys or the amount of sounds you can play at once. So keep an eye on Unison. So we have one voice of Unison, and then we can have two. As this changes, here, I'll show you. Okay, I got a better way of explaining it. So right now, it's mono. I have mono, and I can only play one note at a time. One key at a time. I can't play more than, I can't play chords, right? It doesn't work, right? I can bump up the Unison, and notice that goes to 2. So I'm playing 2, and my maximum is 2. Right? 2 voices. So if I hit a note, I'm playing 2 voices in unison. And that's still the maximum. So it kind of does the math for you, which is pretty cool. So I'll bump this one down. So say I have 16 voices. I can play a note that's 16 keys at the same time, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to explain kind of a use case for you. So say you have like a bunch of unison. You don't want to like max out or blow up your CPU or make like a cloudy mess. We will have, you know, 8 unison, so that'll be 24. So if I hit one note, I'm playing 8 voices. If I play 2, that's 16. If I play 3, that's 24, and I've effectively maxed out my maximum voice count. So say, I'll do it kind of simply. Say, so a chord is 3 voices if you have one voice unison in your oscillator, right? So if I have a release, that's pretty long, right? You notice that the voice is still activated until it fades out. If I play a chord, no problem. But if I play a chord and then I move up to like a different set of keys, the release will cancel out, and that's called note stealing. Right? Because that is the maximum amount of polyphony I'm allowed to have. Right? Kind of chokes it. And this is the thing with the virus. There's a maximum of like 64 or something voices, and you use them with like different filters and stuff like that. Note stealing is something that you kind of, it's an aesthetic thing. It sounds kind of interesting. So how we mitigate no note stealing when I move from that is I can double this to six voices, 6 note polyphony. So I can play a chord, 3-note chord, and as that's fading out, I'll play the next one, and then the releases can still kind of sustain. Right? As opposed to, oops. Right? So just keep an eye on that. Cool thing about Serum is it'll automatically allocate you more voices the more you have unison, so pay attention to this number right here. So yeah, it's pretty so we'll have a 7, which is, you know, the magic number. Right? It could be more apparent. So I'll set this back to 3. And then I'll set this back to 6. Right? You can hear it. I'm good at explaining stuff. Anyway, let's move on. I'm just going to go back to mono mode, so that's 1 note. Right? So we can only play 1 note. And if we try to play another note, it'll just bump up to the highest one. It's like a note priority type thing. So we'll go legato. So what that does is if I okay, with it off, I'll say portamento up. With it off, if I hold the note and then play another one, it'll just jump up to the next one immediately. Right? Oops. Like this. At legato, it does it always, right? Right, hear how it like kind of like jumps up? So with always, it will, with it off, it will, if you don't have more than 1 note held, it'll just jump up to the next one. But with always on, it will remember the previous note and it'll stay on that kind of pitch tracking type thing. Right? So you can get like that, you know, housey kind of thing. Scaled, it changes the portamento time depending on where you are relative to the note you're playing. Right? So the note next to it will happen kind of faster as opposed to the note an octave up if you have scaled on. Right? So it kind of, it's more, I don't know, the pitch tracking or the pitch bend or whatever is more analog with a UE on the end. Anyway, and you can adjust the curve. So you can have the curve like this. It will kind of fastly track up, and then it'll slowly kind of climb up there. Right? Right, or it can go, it can like zap up if you have it, the curve like that. Bad example, let me try again. So like it curves up. And those are, that is, oh, also, let's just mention your pitch bend down here, which is, you know, they're like a MIDI thing. You have your pitch bend, and your range here, 12. Well, it's the default is 2. Sometimes you like to go to 12, and then negative 12. Right? That's your pitch bend right here, and then your mod wheel, and you can map that. it's kind of like an expression pedal type thing. You can map that to basically anything. You can drag it from here, or you can right click mod source, mod wheel. So right now you can be like, mod wheel is very useful because you can map that to multiple things and kind of have like a bunch of things going on at once as you open the mod wheel. Anyway, wow, I'm pretty bright down there. Hope you guys learned stuff. Take care and have a good one. Here's up, guys. In this video, we're going to be going over the effects section, namely the hyper and dimension effects. So you're going to want to go into your effect tab here. Keep in mind that we have a clean saw wave selected. We can verify that, which is good. I'll just make that a little bit like that. All right, so how you enable and disable effects is by clicking on the toggle switch here, and you can enable them. You can change the order and all sorts of fun stuff, and they all run in series. I'll bring this back up here because we're just going to be focusing on the hyper and dimension effect. So hyper is basically whatever this number here is the amount of times what the output is of the OSC section goes into here, and it splits it up into, well, right now it's 4. Splits it up into 4 bands and detunes them, and then modulates the rate of how it's detuned, making a hyper saw effect. We'll stick with 4, and we'll have the mix all the way down so we can hear what's going on. So I'll start out with a clean saw, and then I'll turn up the mix, and you can be able to see and hear what it does. Right, if we have it set to 2, right, you'll notice that there's 2 saws going on, and they're creating a stereo kind of panning effect. We can speed up or slow down the rate of how they go in and out and just move around, which is pretty lush. So right now, it's at 0, it's not moving at all. And if we have detuned to 0, they're not. They're like not detuned at all. And 0 would be like nothing. So we'll set it back to 7, which is a pretty cool effect. With the rate, we'll control shift to reset the rate, and we'll bring the mix all the way up here. So what the mix does is that sets the amount, so it mixes the dry with the wet. And yeah, we'll bring the detune up, and you can hear what's going on. Right, and the retrig, it will start them all off in the same phase, I think. So it's all the same phase, and then they go out of tune. So we'll give you an example of that. Right. And so if I do this, you can really hear it. Starts at the same time, right? Oops, wrong one. Right. If we go retrig off, then they're all running freely. And this is different than the Unison on the Oscillator, because that's per voice, remember. And the effect is whatever is summed out of the OSC section, that's going into this. So it's a way to kind of stack your instances of Serum and get a nice little effect there. Anyway, all right. We'll take the mix all the way down, and I'll show you the dimension. So the dimension, it has 4 delay lines, and they all modulate in and out of the amplitude modulates, and so it gives it like that kind of pseudo. I'm not really sure how it works, but there's an ensemble and reactor, and this same one based off of, I assume it's based off of the one in Massive. So it's a kind of a neat way to widen out mono sounds and make them like pop out in the mix. It's a pretty cool thing. There's also a standalone one from Xfer in the free section. So turn up the mix. So increase in size. sets the amount of delay between, it's like a has effect. Right? You see that? We have set size a little bit smaller. And yeah, that's the hyper end dimension, kind of a weird way of going about it. But yeah, hope you enjoy. Take care, and we'll be back with more stuff. What's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be going over the distortion section of Serum. It's right here in the effects tab, and right here in this, that's how you enable it. You have multiple distortion settings, basically wave shaping. You have your transfer function window, which gives you a visual representation of what's going on. And I will just insert a sine wave like so. Sine. So this is how you can see what's going on. So we'll turn distortion off, and you will see a pure and clean tone, pure and clean sine wave, equal at the zero crossings. Right here is a zero crossing, and right here you'll see a single harmonic, and this is what a sine wave does. It's just a single harmonic, or a single fundamental. There's no harmonics, actually. There's no harmonics. So this is where the signal analyzer really comes to use as an educational tool. So we'll enable distortion, and we'll increase the drive. This is a tube, so this adds more even than odd harmonics. It's very harmonically pleasing, and yeah, that's why there's kind of a fetish for the last couple years of like these tube-based systems, because they add distortion. Like, they're not clean, but they add a harmonically pleasing distortion. It will just increase the drive, and you'll see this transfer function shape change. And you'll see more harmonics above the fundamental being added. And you'll see the sine being kind of rounded off at the top. So what's happening is you're driving, say, an op amp or a circuit or whatever, far beyond what it can handle. So what happens is you get something called clipping, soft clipping, or once it reaches a certain amplitude, it will kind of not be able to handle going above that well. And of course, there's different kind of flavors of how that goes. So I will show you full drive sine wave with a tube, and you'll notice that we're kind of rounding off, and it's kind of turning into a square wave. So what we're doing is we're shaping the sine into something else. Tube is pretty gentle, and soft clip, again, kind of similar. Hard clip will completely shave off the top once it reaches a certain amplitude, and you'll notice it here in this transfer function. It'll just shave it off. Right? And you'll notice there's different harmonics happening above the fundamental in our spectrum analyzer here. But you'll notice, yeah, that's pretty, like, it can't handle going above that, etc., etc. You get the idea. So there's quite a few. Hard clip, diode's more squarey. Diode 2, once it kind of reaches around here, it'll kind of fold back. That makes any kind of sense? So once it reaches a certain amplitude, it'll overcompensate by kind of slamming down. And you'll notice that when you have that, I'll show you diode 2, you'll notice different kind of harmonics will happen in the spectrum. I'll show you that. Right? Pretty cool. And that's with a sine wave. So if you have something like a saw with, a saw is very rich in harmonics, you'll get a different kind of effect. More harmonics will be added on top of those harmonics, and it'll sound pretty crazy. You have things like sine fold, where it kind of shapes it as a sine wave, right? You'll notice here. Right? And yeah, so you can kind of see what's going on represented in this transfer function window. You have 0 square, which is kind of, we'll take a sine wave and squarify it, or take something else and squarify it at the 0 crossing. So what I mean by 0 crossing, you'll see here in this little area right here. I'm not really good at explaining this because, yeah, this is, well, yeah. But you can kind of, if you play around with it, you'll slowly get it. You'll notice that sine wave equal lengths up here, and in the cycle, different lengths here. And right about here is the 0 crossing, and that's kind of silence, assuming there's no DC offset. But this is silence right here, and you'll notice that right around here is silence. And as you increase the drive on the 0 square, it'll squarify the 0 crossing. That's what it means. Wait, what? What the heck? Oh, I turned the mix down. Weird. Right, you'll see the 0 crossing will disappear basically. We have a square. Right, so imagine what that'll do. Downsample, that's different. That is kind of diminishes the sample rate, so you get more of a stair step. Right, you notice the stair step right here. You'll notice that we have harmonics, and that's from like aliasing, and that's an entirely different video, but it lowers the quality, but it adds harmonics, and that can be kind of pleasing. Older gear didn't have a super high sample rate, so you get that aliasing on, especially on like the top end, and I'll give you an example of that. Like if we have it kind of, you know, lower, right? You see one kind of harmonic right there, but as we move up, right, we'll see more things kind of, you know, because, yeah, and to rectify that, you'd want to oversample, but you wouldn't want to oversample the downsample effect. Well, I guess you could, but maybe it might work, but I don't know. Anyway, we have asymmetrical, which kind of reverses it and kind of folds it back. Right, so it takes, once it reaches a certain amplitude that it can't handle, it folds back, which is cool. Rectify is basically what a diode does, so it'll cause it like the electricity or the current or voltage can go through it, but it can't go back in, so you can't get the sinusoid. So right, there's no positive amplitude, right? It can only go negative, which is rectification. It can't go in one direction. Right? So it's effectively flipped once it goes over that certain amplitude. And that's an interesting effect. A lot of guitar pedals use rectifiers, even, you know, wall warts and stuff like that use rectifiers. Anyway, we have our Xshaper and asymmetrical Xshaper, where you can physically draw in the transfer function. So right here is the 0 crossing, and we can kind of do all sorts of crazy stuff, and we'll see that expressed here. A better example is, I will kind of reset this by double clicking, and I'll go to edit B. So on this side of the drive, it's edit A. Edit A will keep as a clean signal, and we'll refresh by doing that. Edit B will have our distorted signal. So we'll draw something wacky here, and we'll increase the drive, and you can see what that does. Weird. So as you have more of like a sharp curve, you get more like of a sinusoidal type thing. So we can have this, and this is just a sine wave, remember. That's what the transfer function looks like. And we can do do all sorts of crazy stuff. You can modulate that. You know, smooth it out. Do all sorts of stuff. It sounds kind of FM-y. Sounds kind of cool. Anyway, there's that, and the asymmetrical Xfer. It's a little bit different. I believe that this is the zero crossing, but it's a little different on this regard. You get more of a rectifier. I believe it's flipped. Anyway, different flavors. I'm gonna go back to tube. I'm gonna set it something to, let's say single. We'll go just a saw. So this is a saw wave. I have something that already has a lot of harmonics. And what we have here is a filter, and we can have it pre-distortion or post-distortion. So a good technique, so what distortion does is it boosts harmonics, drives harmonic, adds harmonics, does, you know, shapes, does all sorts of crazy stuff. So if we have a filter that is before, we can kind of get rid of certain harmonics via a filter. Right? What a filter does. Right? See how we got rid of all those harmonics? We can do that, and then we can drive post filter, pre-distortion to add those back, and it sounds different. Right? So a good technique would be, well, a technique that I use, you don't have to use, is I'll use a bandpass filter. Do something weird. Go down an octave. Right, we have that, and then I will drive that. Use different distortion types to kind of beef it up, and then I'll move the frequency. Right? And then I can have my sub direct out, bypassing the effect. Right, to add more beef or lamb or something. Anyway, there's that. You can also go post filter. So say if something's a little too crazy, like that. Let's pretend like, let's go sinusoidal fold. We want to kind of tame that with a filter. We can do that. Or we want to boost a little bit. Or I'm clipping. Right, very FM. Another thing here is a mix knob. So you can kind of parallel distortion. But at the beginning, or at the beginning, 50-50, we get the original. We can have a mix of the two. We can also add an envelope to the mix and have just a lot of distortion, just briefly. Maybe even more briefly. Right? And there's a way to, you know, kind of add more flavor. Have an extreme amount of distortion at the beginning as an attack, and then have it kind of faded out. And yeah, that is the distortion section. Hopefully I've explained it well-ish. Any questions, leave a comment or whatever. Yeah, thanks for watching. Take care, and we'll be back. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over the flanger, phaser, and chorus. We're going to start out with a saw wave, and because that has, a lot of harmonics, and we can see what's going on. And we're going to be activating the flanger, phaser, and chorus. Now let's turn these all off, and then turn the mix down. And we're going to start with the flanger. So what happens with the flanger is the audio is duplicated, delayed slightly, and then put back together. And that's what it sounds like with the rate off. The rate basically changes the amount of how it's delayed a little bit. So that's how you get the flanger effect. So we have the rate down, which is a useful thing I'll get into later. There we have delayed signal happening there. We can increase the rate and we'll get that flanger effect. We have our depth, which is the amount, the feedback, which is how crazy it sounds, and the phase of the delayed signal. And we have our mix here, and that's basically the flanger. The phaser is somewhat similar. What it does is it takes, still copies the sound, but then it phase shifts it. So you get like a different kind of effect. Things get canceled out more. Right, so the peaks and valleys, where the valleys are, that's when things are being canceled out, and the peaks is when things are, stacked up. You have your depth. You have your frequency focus, and your feedback, and the phase, 180, 0, or 360. A really cool thing about the phaser, and all of these, is you can set the rate to 0, so it's not moving at all. And from there, you can, add some really cool like bass sounds, electro bass sounds. Adding like harmonics, basically comb filter. And from there you can add like, say, distortion to beef it up a bit. Right, it's still a wide signal. If you have the phase down to 0, they're both the left, or like not the left and right. The duplicated signal is stacked up. It's not out of phase. I forgot to mention that. You can adjust the feedback to get more of a bite. So what I really enjoy is mixing the phaser with the 0 rate and driving that into distortion. Anyway, that's just me getting my jollies off. Chorus, it splits the signal left and right. And there's 2 channels on the left, 2 channels on the right. And it makes a really nice, delays it, of course. It is very similar to the flange technique, but it modulates the pitch, not the phase. So you get a really, you essentially get a pseudo unison, and you have a low pass filter, which you make it sound more warm or whatever. Right? You can hear like it not kind of like all the voices kind of not stopping at the same time, and that's because there's a bunch of delays going on. You can have a 0 millisecond delay and say an 11 or a 10. Effectively the has effect, maybe. Right, giving it wideness. You can have the rate at 0, as with all of them. But I like to have the rate because that's, that's chorus. Oops. You have feedback, makes it a bit more intense. The feedback in the low pass filter. I think it makes it 50%. And that's, class like Juno, like a Juno chorus or like retro kind of chorus. Anyway, that is the flanger phaser in chorus. The chorus sounds really nice with the reverb. Makes it sound bigger, etc., etc. Anyway, hope you learn stuff. Take care, and we'll be back. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over the delay and reverb settings in Serum. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make a little something more interesting, not just saw wave. What I'm going to do, make somewhat of a pluck. I'm going to drag envelope 2 to the cutoff and move that down. Right, so now we have something a little bit more interesting for our delay and reverb effects. So we're going to go into the effects tab and peep the delay tab here. So what the delay does is it kind of copies the sound and delays it being played by, either time left and right, or you can link them. Also important, a time of like 183 milliseconds. Right? Or BPM locked, which would be, 1/4 all the way to fast, which I find awesome. But usually I stick around between 16ths and half notes. So we'll go 16ths. If we want to unlink them, we can have 16th and 8th. And yeah, that's basically the normal delay. You'll notice over here we have normal, ping pong, and tap delay. Ping pong, or normal, is basically just a normal delay. We'll link these. Right, just a normal delay. Ping pong goes left and right. Right, we can also unlink those. I have 16ths, ping pong. Right, kind of a rhythmic, more interesting sounding delay. And then we have our tap delay, which is right here. So what happens in tap delay is this kind of changes. The left is the delay for the actual reverb, and then the right is the time in which it delays. So kind of you just listen to it, and I'll explain what it does, because then I'll be able to know what I'm talking about. Right, so it when you hit a note or whatever, it waits till a quarter note, and then it delays normally on 16ths. So basically, it's the same as normal, but then there's a delay until the delay happens. Right, pretty cool. And yeah, so on the left, the amount of time it takes for the actual delay to engage. Right. Anyway, so let's go back to normal. I'll explain what we have here. Is we have a feedback filter. So we have low pass, high pass, band pass, and it's a way to kind of clean up the feedback of what is being delayed. Right, with a mix of 100%. So if you have like a delay on the low end, you don't want the low end to be, hogging up everything in the mix, because then you get problems. Right. Another thing I should be mentioning is we can offset the delay by milliseconds. Right, and that kind of gives it interesting. We can unlink those as well. Sorry, unlink those, so different delay times. Right, so it's offset, but it adds a really interesting effect. Another thing I should mention, we'll link that. We have, once we get up to here, we have triplets as you move up. Right, so you have like a 16th triplet, and then up to 1.5, got dotted. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Got dotted half as we go down. Right, which is pretty intense. Anyway, that's a nice feature. I appreciate that. And that is the delay. Let's go into the reverb, which is right here. Right, so this is a plate based reverb. We have a few options here. We have our mix, which is how much of the dry signal and how much of the wet signal. Right. The stereo width, how wide, or like if you want like a stereo reverb. The size, the reverb size is basically room size. You can have very small, like a small room, to like a cathedral. Right. You have the pre-delay, which is how long it takes for the reverb circuit to receive the sound, so you can have a 0 delay. So it kind of adds the delay. If you want, you know, bigger thing, a bigger kind of attack. Right, and that's kind of, if you listen to beats by Rank 1, that's the kind of effect that they use. Right, it's kind of like a pumping effect. It's really cool. Low cut is basically, it cuts out all the low. Right, we'll turn the mix all the way up so you can hear that. That might be useful if you don't want the low end of the reverb to kind of muddy up the mix. Damping is, say, it's just, so like pretend that it's like a wide open kind of cathedral. It was 0% dampening. Right, you have like, you know, a nice long reverb, lots of reflections as you turn the dampening up. Pretend that you have carpets on the walls, or, you know, it just kind of dampens it, essentially. Right. High cut, same kind of thing. It cuts out all the high end. And then as you increase it, it shaves off the high end. Right. The cool thing to use is the delay and reverb in conjunction. 1/8. Right, adds a cool effect. You can of course use ping pong. And when the filter opens, sounds cool. You can add Unison to make it even more awesomer. Right? And that is the delay and reverb. Hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good one. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over the filter and EQ sections of Serum. We have our saw wave here, and we have our filter and EQ here. Now, these are kind of, I don't know, ways to shape the sound. The filter, this is more of an effect than this. This filter here operates per voice, and they have the same filters here, so you can use these as an effect or a way to like affect the sound. So what we'll do is I will do, let's say, phaser 24 drive. This is a way to kind of add beef to a sound. What you can do is you can add a distortion effect post the filter, because the distortion has a pre-filter, but it's only low pass, band pass, and high pass. But here you have a very robust filter that's used an LFO tool. So what you can do is you can basically have a pre-filter for the distortion that's more unique. And you can get some pretty cool sounds that way. And in conjunction, you can have your pre-filter and adjust the resonance. Right, and you can also do some cool stuff like attach an envelope to the drive. Oh, maybe not that much. And you can use you can use hard clip if you want to go crazy. Right, there's that. All right, let's move on to something else. If you want to know more about the filter, refer to the filter section in a previous video. The EQ. So this is an EQ that is pretty robust. You can use it as a filter because it does have low pass and high pass. So you can add, say, low end if you'd like. You can do that. You can add a notch or a peak, or do all sorts of fun stuff. What I sort of kind of do is I add a shelf, and say if I have like a sound, it's like that. I'll turn that down a bit. I'll have my my reverb, and I'll want to have a bit more bite. And I wouldn't do that. So what I do is I attach this to the envelope. Have it right about there, 50% normal. To give it a bit more bite, sounds pretty cool. Right? Pretty neat, hey? Or you can do that for like a bass. If you want the bass to kind of bite at the beginning, you can do that with a low shelf, right? Right? We can, yeah, let's just do it the same idea. Why not? I want it a little bit more fast. Right? And that adds kind of like a multiband compression, kind of, sort of. Anyway, that's the filter and EQ. Pretty basic plugins. Think of them as like utilities, but the applications are pretty powerful and fun. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Take care and have a good one. Here's up, guys. In this video, I'll be going over the compressor, namely the multiband compressor, because, you know, we all know what a compressor does, but the multiband option in Serum does is very special. So I'm just gonna make a quick sound. Give it a bit of, give it a bit of a release. Give it filter it a little bit, and move this over, do that. Right. Add that. Add that beat to the filter. Right, so we have that sound. Sounds pretty cool. We will add a hyper. Have that. We'll have the compressor right at the bottom. I'm going to add a delay. Or a reverb, sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna have this at 50% just so you can hear it. And then I'll show you why you'd want to turn it down. That lower. No, I'll have that at the same. Alright, so we're going to turn on the compressor and switch it over to multiband. And you'll see that it splits up here. So what this does is this basically squishes the shit out of your sounds. And it's similar to the OTT preset in Ableton. And what it does is it makes it very, very way more louder. So we have our upwards, I want it to bite there. So you have low, mid, and high. So it'll squish it and then... Right, and you'll notice that you can hear that delay and reverb pretty loud. That's because it's being squished quite a bit. So we'll dial these back. We'll open that filter. And that is the multiband compressor. Basically bringing out everything, splitting it up into 3 bands, and then like squishing each one individually, making the highs very loud, the mids very loud, and the lows loud. And it's kind of used quite a bit in dance music in the last couple years. We'll turn down the pre-delay, turn down the dampness, and turn the high cut all the way down, turn the size down as well. Right. Another thing they do is they add a gate to the reverb, so we'll do that now with envelope 3. So you'll notice fully open when you release, it's fully closed. We'll do that. It's a really cool effect. Anyway. That is the compressor. 9 times out of 10 when you do use it, you're going to be using it in the multiband mode, simply because it sounds really cool and really loud and gosh darn aggressive. Feel free to bring the threshold all the way down, which is up. So I'll bypass that. I'll remove it, why not? Oh yeah, another thing about the compressor, if you want to turn off the multiband, it has a limit mode. Once you go all the way up past 32:1, it goes into limit mode. So you'll have a brick wall limiter Right, and that's useful if you don't want to do that. Anyway, hope you learned stuff. Take care, have a good one, and yeah, happy compressing. Hey, what's up guys, in this video I'm going to be going over the matrix section. The matrix, it's kind of a modulation section. So traditionally you would have your source, which would be like envelope, LFO1, destination, let's go oscillator A fine tune, and the amount, and that would modulate, LFO1 would modulate the pitch of oscillator A, right? And yeah, and then you'd have to dive into menus for all that stuff. So in Serum, you kind of drag and drop. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a patch, and yeah, let's just make a patch and have some modulation stuff going on. My favorite things to do is to just have an envelope for the filter cutoff. For this one, I'll have this up. That 7th. I'll have an LFO modulating the fine-tune pitch of that. Really fast, I'll solo it. Sounds cool. Right, alright, so we have that. Let's see, what else are we gonna do? Let's go bump up the Unison. Let's kind of have some movement. Trigger the res. Right, so we have a few things going on here. I'll have envelope 3, adjusting the drive, and let's have envelope 4 with the mix. We'll have this like that, that like that. We'll have that on envelope mode. We have a burst of distortion, and we'll add a little bit of reverb. Right. Sounds pretty funky. Alright, so we have all that. So I'm going to go over to the matrix section, and you'll see that everything that we've been doing has automatically been added to the matrix section. So we have envelope 2 affecting the filter cutoff, LFO1, the oscillator B pitch, LFO3, like modulating the filter resonance right here, envelope 3 filter drive, and LFO4 in envelope mode, adjusting the distortion wet. You can see all those things happening right now. You'll notice that LFO1 is vibrating like crazy right here, which is pretty cool. And you'll see kind of a visual readout of all of our modulation. So I want to show you some stuff regarding this. So once we've kind of gone through all that, we can go into the matrix mode, and this is useful. Like 9 times out of 10, you won't be digging in here, or maybe I should go. Yeah, maybe like 2 out of 3 times, you won't be going into the matrix section. But you know, if you want to dive in, then this video is for you. Holy crap, my brain just farted a little bit. We have controls of our amount, our depth. So you can have more of a pitch bend. Another thing I want to show you is the type. So there's bipolar and unipolar. you'll see our filter cutoff in this direction. And that means, so we'll go envelope 2 so we can see. So here's the where it rests, here's where it starts, right? Like that, down like that. If we were to set that to bipolar, like that, the blue part changes. So the center would be where this little notch is. That would be the center of the modulation. And that is the default for pitch fine tune. But for like filter cutoff and stuff like that, you want it at unipolar. So you'll see where it physically rests, and where you modulate is where it starts. Right. What else? You have your curve. So the curve is adjusted per source. You can have like a different kind of curve from the same source without adjusting that. Right? So you have like a longer curve before the filter closes, back to linear, which is what the gray means, or it'll a faster kind of thing, and that mimics kind of that, right? Following me? And it's a way to get multiple different envelopes from different sources affecting certain destinations in certain ways. It's pretty, you know, deep and creative. You have your auxiliary source. So say if we wanted what's making oscillator B vibrate, which is LFO1, we can have that as an auxiliary source, or a mod wheel, or what have you. For fun, we'll go LFO1. So now it's like wibbly wobbly. You adjust the curve. Right, and that's all well and good. Auxiliary source, it's kind of, you know, yeah. And we can have it set to bypass or invert it. Usually you have this set for like the mod wheel, so the mod wheel can control the amount of each one, and the output you can have set. So say if you have like your patch or whatever and you want to delve in or dive in, you can sort by source or destination. We have envelope and LFO, so we can see, or we can sort by destination. So if you have a bunch of things affecting the cutoff, you can quickly organize them. So say if we want the filter cutoff to not be so intense, we can decrease that, or have the drive not so intense, right? Or if we want to, say, have, yeah, like aftertouch, polyphonic aftertouch affecting things, you can just go crazy. Anyway, that is the matrix section, and I'd say it's pretty cool. Yeah, hope you learned stuff. Take care and have a good. Here's up, guys. In this video, I'm going to be going over the Unison settings and options in Serum. And what better thing to unisonize than the Super Saw, which you can get on my website in the description. I have one from the Virus and one from the JP8080 behind me, and this is what it looks like. It's a beautiful sound. It's a saw wave, but it's a little bit different, and you'll notice that. So anyway, we have our Unison section here. So what this does is it takes the single cycle here, and it will make a copy and detune it slightly and pan it left or right. So if we have 1 times Unison, basically we have one saw, essentially. Isn't that an amazing looking saw? Available on my website. We have 2, it splits it up left and right. And it's detuned slightly, but it sounds kind of weird, so we have to turn the detune amount down to bring them kind of closer together. And we can blend them in and out. Doesn't do anything until we add a third. So what you see here is we have our center channel, which doesn't move. We have 3 supersaws going on at once. Center channel doesn't move, and then we have our left and right, which is the green, And those are the ones that are detuned. So we'll listen to that now. We're getting there. So we can bump it up to 7 times unison. We can go 8 and we'll have 2 in the center, but we just want 1 in the center, 3 on each side, 7 mathematics, and we'll detune those starting from the center. Right, and that is the super saw. So there's some options that we can do. So I'm going to go back to 2 times unison so you can accurately hear what's going on. So what they're doing is they're detuned and they start at certain times. You can see that right here. Pretty cool. If we adjust the phase, if we adjust the randomness, we turn the randomness down right to there, they'll both start at the same time. So right now, if we bump up the unison, they'll stack with the detune down. And if we detune them, they'll all start at the same time, and then they'll go out a phase. Right, you notice that they all start at the same time. We turn the detune amount slightly. Right. You'll see that they all start at the same time. Right. So yeah, just to be aware. So we'll have just the phase starting, well, wherever, but the randomness is full. So it can start at any point, which is what we want if we want to bump it up. The thing about the supersaw is it has these aliased kind of things going on, which really adds to the high end, and it just sounds great. So we have that. So let me init, and we'll start out with this one. And we'll go into the global tab. And this is the unison setting. And I'll show you what that does. We got range and width, which is basically what is being affected here. And I'll confuse myself briefly. Warp and wavetable position, we will get into later, but that kind of we'll have different wavetable positions, different warp positions for each voice. So you can get some really cool sounds with that, and you'll see what I mean in subsequent videos in the wavetable position as well. But we can stack these. We can stack one voice. We have 2 times unison. This. We can stack it 2 octaves up. Oops. What? There we go. Do that. Right, so we have it in chord mode. Right. We can stack it so it's a 7th. So like kind of like a pseudo chord. Center 12. You can have it like a sub-osc. And all that fun stuff. The main thing you want to worry about is the mode here. So linear is how these are spaced apart. We'll go up to 7. And yeah, we'll plug in the supersaw again. Bring up the drive. And we will set the mode to super. So this detunes much like the supersaw does. And you'll see that the ones that are farther out from the center are more spread. Right. And the other mode is exponential. So So as you move farther out, the distance is doubled. So it's not linear, it's exponential, right? So you get kind of interesting thing going on there. Inverted and random. Random's kind of interesting because they'll detune randomly, and the detune sets the amount of randomness that it will allow. Right, so that's kind of like analog. It's out of tune. It's like all weird and stuff, but yeah, that's great. I like super, and you can set super for the other one, and adjust parameters for both A and B by clicking on this center guy here. And yeah, it's pretty cool. A little bit too much there. And that's the super saw. And what better sound to unisonize than the original super saw? Anyway, take care and hope you learn stuff. Have a good one. Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be going over the wavetable editor in Serum. We'll be starting out with our init preset here, which is a saw wave, which sounds pretty good, but we can edit that. We're going to go into this little pencil crayon thing here, and here is the edit page, and here is our saw. So we can, how we draw in wavetables is based on the grid. We have an 8x8 grid. We have frequency content over time, and then amplitude content over time. And you'll see that, you know, we effectively changed a saw to a square, which is pretty cool. We can do quite a bit more. So let's turn the grid to 0, the amplitude grid, and the frequency grid to 0, both 0. And from here, we can draw in this sort of thing, which is, oops, cool. You could draw pretty much anything, really. We can also kind of have more of a grid. So say if we want to, yeah, let's just have this set at 1, have this set at 1. If we want a ramp saw, we can make a perfect shape like that, down saw, like that, sine, or we can just select a formula and hit sine. We can have like a rectified sine type of thing going on here. Or the opposite, different shapes. We can have it curved, which is, this is kind of like a sinusoidal kind of saw. We can add noise. Oops, we'll have to set that to 0. We can add different amounts of noise by dragging it along, just to add a bit more. Stuff like that, which is pretty nice. Right. We can, you know, also enter in formulas. I'm not a mathematician guy, but whatever. We'll add a saw. Okay, so this is like a basic saw. And how Serum works is it's a wavetable synth, so you can have multiple wavetables on a single oscillator. So we have one wavetable, which is our saw here. We have one currently. Let's add another one. And when you select this, you add another frame. So we have 2 frames. We can select that. We'll turn this one to, we'll turn this one to a square, or whatever passes as a square. So we have a square here. So we have square, square, and saw, right? And we have that, when we close this, we have this in our window. So how do we go from frame 1, which is a saw, to frame 2, which is a square? We can do that, but we can also go to our wavetable position, and we have wavetable position 1 and then 2. Right? So we have a 2-frame wavetable. We can actually go in and morph between these two. And what this does is there's crossfade. Usually you should be using a spectral, and that will create a very nice kind of a crossfade. You'll notice down here that this went from 2 to 256. So we have 256 frames now. And we can see that in here, we can morph. That's pretty weird. Let's go back. I think I did that in a backwards way, but we can fix that. So we'll just change that up. Morph, spectral. There. Kind of like that. And this is the rare time that crossfade would be a lot more appropriate to go from a saw to a square. Right? All right. So with that, we have the ability to go from a saw to a square and back. And if you click on this, you can see that it morphs in between, which is pretty neat. So say, let's do something else. Let's go, I want to copy, and then let's go, let's add a, yeah, let's add another, let's init all. Let's add 3 frames. So we'll have one of a saw this way, and we'll have the other one, the third one, as a sine, right? So when we close this, we'll go between each. So we have saw, square, and sine. What we can do now is we can morph, we can cross fade, and now we're cross fading in between all of them. And that's basically wavetable editor. Okay, so let's jump into some interesting stuff. So what we can do is we can just draw in something crazy. We'll set the grid size to 0. I want this to be a little warm. Right, so we have that, and I want this one to be a sine. So I have that, and then I will morph that spectrally, and then I'll have my wavetable position set to about this. Right, and you could see how, you can kind of morph around and do lots of crazy stuff. So say if we had that mapped to an LFO. Right, we have effectively a wobble. I will go, init. Go here. And I'm going to show you another trick. So say if you draw in something just whacktastic, what you can do is you can import this into an FFT by clicking this arrow right here. And you'll see all these bins popping up. So what these are harmonics. So what FFT is it basically, a million years ago, someone discovered that if you could take any sound and you can make basically any sound using a bunch of sine waves with different phases. So you have this top right here are your sine waves, and down here is the phase of them. So what I should do, I'm going to init, and I'm going to show you. So we're going to start, instead of drawing it in here, I'll draw it in via, okay, so I'll set it to sine, bring that up here. So this is a sine wave. This is a single harmonic, right? And you'll notice that this is only one bin is drawn in, and this is basically how you make a sine really easily in Serum. Is you just go to this bin, pop it up here, and this is the fundamental. Right. So how you can add more sounds is by adding more sine waves and more harmonics. So you can add it to these bins. The bins that are light gray are harmonics, and the ones that are darker are inharmonics. So you can add a bunch of stuff, and with this bin below it is you can adjust the phase. So I'll give you an example of that. I'll give you two. Well, actually, I'll give you one. So this is how you adjust the phase of that. So let me draw on something crazy again. So you're drawing in a shape, and it's pretty cool, right? And you want to get a fundamental going on. So what you do is you'll click Wave to FFT. You see that, and this is your fundamental bin up here. So you can take away the fundamental, or you can add it more in. Effectively adding more of a low end in contrast to whatever else you have here. So what you can do now, I don't know how many times I've said that, you can go to spectral in your preset menu, or anything really, and we'll go into importing wavetables at a later date. Is you'll click on something and it'll load, and this is what a very complex wavetable looks like. And this is made with 2, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 wavetables, but you morph in between all of them. And this is what it looks like when you morph in between all of them. So you get this. Right? You have that. That's pretty freaking cool, if you ask me. There's some math going on. Yeah. So before I go, I want to show you one more trick. One more trick is, okay, so, it's all well and good to draw on wavetables like that. You have your grid on. Make sure that they're like multiples of 2. So, you'd have this set to 2, and then you'd have square wave, and let's make a perfect square wave, etc., etc. But there's another thing you can do, is you can say, if you're comfortable, you can draw your wave shape in here, in this, and this is how you make sure that it's a perfect cycle if you just leave these. So we'll have that, like that, and then we'll just have that in a weird shape. What you do is you hit Alt, and then you drag that in. Oops. And you'll notice, here, I'll show you that again. I'll just pick a different one. Hit Alt, drag that into this window, and then there you have this one right here. And it's just another way to draw on wavetables. Yeah, that is pretty much it. You have the ability to sort by peak, and you can export or import by drag and dropping. We're going to be doing that later. And then you can process and add singles and all that stuff. You can even init, which is silence. Anyway, hope you learned at least something. Again, I'm not too familiar with FFT, but I can kind of, it gets more interesting when you drag sounds in and import them. You can do some really wacky stuff, which I will show later. Anyway, take care, and hey, what's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be going over the oscillator warp section, which is right here on oscillator A and right here on oscillator B. These are ways to kind of shape or do interesting things to the actual single cycle before it's sent out into the filter. So we're going to start off with sync. Now, oscillator sync, what it does is it kind of repeats the cycle multiple times, and then it restarts, and you'll be able to see what that does. So as we have our init saw wave right here, as we increase this, we'll get more and more saw waves, but then it will kind of restart, and it gives it an interesting effect. Right, it's pretty aggressive, and you'll notice that it keeps on, you know, restarting. If we drop down and go to the next one, or hit this arrow, we'll see that there's something called a window, and what that does is it kind of smooths out the end of the cycle, so you get something a bit more. The timbre makes a bit more sense, in my opinion. And full window, right? So it sounds more coherent as a key, because it resets, and it sounds pretty cool. And it sounds kind of AM-ish. Yeah. So the next one is bend, and this is a way to pinch the sound, right? Think of it as like wave shaping. So it can either pinch it when it's bend plus, bend negative. What that does is it pulls it, and this is a way to add a bit of a siny-ishness to a sound, making it, you know, bassier. You'll notice, right? You'll notice that it sounds a bit more bassier. Low passy with a bit of saturation. Anyway, you got bend, plus, and negative. So like at 0, it's normal. Plus or negative, and then positive. Pinch and pull, and you can modulate these. Sounds rather cool. Up next, we have pulse width modulation. So what this does is kind of the same as sync, but you have basically silence afterwards. So does pretty cool things. It's kind of like the square wave, adjusting the pulse width on a square wave. Kind of the same deal. Pretty interesting. Asymmetry. It's similar to bend, but bends the entire waveform to the right. So it takes like the center and then just pulls it over. Same with this one. It takes this basically the opposite. It'll pull it over to the right. Plus and negative. It takes the center. So right now we're at 0. It takes the center and you can move it left and right. Sounds pretty interesting. Flip will scan it from left to right and then flip it, or like flip it upside down, which is a pretty interesting way. This looks familiar. This was done in Zeta. Yeah, anyway. Mirror, it'll take the center and then split it. Does some weird stuff. So we have 4 remap modes. And this is, think of this as another wave shaper, like in our effects kind of section. Right, and we'll kind of do that. We'll make it really extreme-ish. And as we increase the value, you gotta like distortion, and it's a great way to kind of add meatiness to it, I would say. Yeah, I'll just kind of have it gentle. Wait, it's too gentle. Anyway, those are the remap modes. We have quantize, which kind of downsamples it. bit reduces the bit rate, the bit depth, sorry. Which sounds pretty good. And it's per voice, I believe. And now we have FM modes. So FM is frequency modulation, and what you're doing is you're modulating the pitch of oscillator A with oscillator B. So we're going to activate oscillator B, turn the level down over here, and what we'll do is we will add a sine wave. Right? So you have a sine wave, we have a level down, and we'll just play this. What we'll do is we'll increase the FM from B. Sounds more interesting if we have two sine waves so you can hear what's going on. What we're doing is we are modulating the pitch of oscillator A with oscillator B. Right? And it makes sense harmonically, so it's pitch tracked. So, right? And we can adjust the oscillator here. So what you would do is you would have envelope 1 kind of being modulated. Modulate FM, the FM amount with envelope 2. And then you can actually mix in the sine wave as well. Anyway, so I will remove all modulators. AM, so instead of frequency being modulated, we have amplitude being modulated. And this is kind of like a ring modulator. Right, so we have amplitude being modulated. So as you increase it to like pretty high up there, you got ring modulation. And what's really important if you're using like high values of amplitude modulation or FM, you should really go and turn up the oscillator sections to 4 times. 4 times oversampling, so you don't get aliasing, because aliasing is kind of bad. It's AM. RM is actual like ring modulation. So it adds like, ring modulation. You have other sources for FM, the noise oscillator or the sub-oscillator. And the sub-oscillator, I would use 9 times out of 10 because it outputs a sine wave anyway, and it frees up your other oscillator so you can do other stuff with it. Sounds awful. Pretty intense, but you get the idea. Right. And that's the FM OSC. Hope I've been a help. Yeah, these are just different ways. So if you have this and your wavetable position, you can get some really nice evolving sounds. Anyway, that's it for me for now. Take care, and we learn stuff. Take care. And we learn stuff and take care. Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to be going over the Chaos LFOs. Now Serum has 4 LFOs here, and you can draw on basically anything you want, but there's no way to kind of engage like a true kind of sample and hold, or like, in other words, a random LFO. Right? Sounds random, kind of, but it just repeats over and over again. Right? It just goes on over and over again. So we can go remove all modulators, and we will right-click, mod source, chaos 1. So chaos 1 and chaos 2 are different kinds of chaos, and basically think of them as like sample and hold LFOs. You can find them in the global tab. They have a rate. You can sync them to BPM, which kind of sounds weird to me. Have the mono, and that means that like the LFO is constant for all voices. Right? Sounds kind of random. If we go sample and hold, it'll step that. So you get a true sample and hold. Right? We'll have it set to mono. BPM sync, you'll get more of a BPM step or synced step. So we'll go 16ths. Right? Chaos 2, they're both kind of different. Chaos 1 is more repeating, and Chaos New is kind of, as far as I know, Chaos 2 restarts quite a bit, right? So I will right-click, remove all modulation, mod source, Chaos 2, and you can hear it. We'll go sample and hold. Right, and if you want to set the depth of the modulation, you can go into the matrix here. Set it to unipolar, why not? And there you have it. You have basically chaos, randomness. So yeah, there you go. Chaos 1 and 2, super fun. Really nice feature. Really interesting in its usage. You can do all sorts of weird stuff with it. Different triggering of like a different wavetable position, different warping, different phase, and you can like sync them all up and have them in mono, or have them just affecting different things differently. Pretty unique. Anyway, hope you learned stuff. Take care. What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to be importing wavetables. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get a sound, that right there, and I'm going to just drag that over, and I'm going to just hit import normal. Usually this is the one that you'll be using because it's first. Why not? It'll import it in, and you will see that there's the tail of it there, and then you'll see all of that in there. And there it is. Little problem is that there's a bunch of basically silence right here. So what you do is you go add remove to selected to end, gets rid of that. And then we'll go over here, removed beginning to selected to remove that. So now we have our wavetable of randomness. Right. So what we'll do is, what I want to do is I'll show you something. So I will copy oscillator A to B, copy that over, and then I'll mute that so I can always see where I started. Hit the edit button again. I will go sort by spectrum peak. So that'll rearrange all of them. So maybe we'll get like a different kind of cohesion of. Right. Let's process, or we'll morph to spectral. See what we got here. So I'm gonna find something that I kind of like. I like 139. 139. Where's that one? So I'll just go 139 like 135, and I will remove beginning to selected. So I'm going to kind of fine tune what I'm looking at here. And I'll actually scrub through using this. And I'll remove 135 onwards. Yeah, let's just do that. Remove selected to end. Now I have this, and for fun, I'll go crossfade, spectral, or, you know, do all that. So now, right, I have that. So now I have this neato kind of, I'll process, I'll normalize each, so they, you know, they get kind of louder. Well, the audio is normalized. And yeah, I can just do stuff with the LFO. And I have that, and this is what the original kind of sounded like here. Not trying to make a one-to-one copy, but I have, you know, just something pretty neat. Pretty neat here. And I can even refine that a bit more. So we'll go add, remove, selected. I remove selected to end here. So now I have 3 of these, and I want those. Anyway, enough of that. And that is basically how you import waveforms, wavetables, or, you know, audio. And you can import basically anything short, like a one-shot or something. And yeah, you can use it. Anyway, that's it. Take care.